In Fish Whispering Television. A lot of you may already know who you are or who I am. You probably know who you are. But just in case you haven't really heard about me, used to have a fly fishing show called Fish Whispering. It was on Comcast Sportsnet Northwest in the mid teens to late teens. It was about a 7-season show. And I discussed just some tactics, some techniques, but mostly being out in a wild environment and kind of being a part of that environment, which is my ethos in being in nature. I just kind of like being there. But I do love catching fish. I love catching a lot of fish because I love fish and I love the environments they come in. So one thing I've been doing to catch a lot of fish is using this fly. Actually, I have a kids fishing clinic that I'm doing with the Johnson County Youth Mentor Program here in Buffalo, Wyoming. And I do this from time to time, not as often as I'd like to, but I take some of the mentor kids out and I show them fishing. Not always just fly fishing, but this trip is going to be fly fishing on a local lake. And I apologize. I don't know how to focus on YouTube Live. I haven't done YouTube Live yet, so I'm trying to make her work. But this is what I'm tying. It's, I don't know, a Paragon Disco Midge cross. Really just kind of a sparkly Paragon nymph. Paragon is like a Spanish-based pattern that sinks really fast. It's got a hard body. It doesn't have a lot of like soft materials on there. The soft materials, welcome to the soft materials don't sink quite as heavy. So just kind of like hard materials that don't absorb water. It looks like, well, remember to guard your privacy. Yeah, whatever. Go ahead and post questions whenever you guys want to. That'd be cool. I'm just kind of going through stuff here, trying to figure it out. I've got it on kind of a flimsy arm, so. Oh, we got one person on. All right, so now I got an audience. Tying a fly. It's kind of a Paragon nymph I've been using on local lakes, and rivers. It's been doing well, actually equally well on lakes and rivers. Man, I've been fishing this thing for about 3 years now, or some variation of it. It's pretty simple to tie. And this is it. There we go. Here's a background to focus on. It's just kind of a sparkly Paragon. And I know for the fly tires out there, you probably want it a little bit tighter on the fly. I'm kind of using this as an opportunity to just BS and communicate. So I'll zoom in on the fly as much as I can. But here we go. I'm going to start just using orange thread. I don't know what size it is because the label fell off years ago. I think it's 8/0 though. Normally I like slightly thinner thread, but this is what I'm using because it's a color that I like, and my thinner thread has been breaking and driving me crazy. All right, so just start it up there near just behind the bead. Oh, I have a you probably should know the materials. I'm using Firehole. You can't find these anymore, unfortunately, but everything's backwards. Firehole 520 model hook. It's the only continuous curved jig hook. I don't know how much detail you guys are going to want in this, and my one audience member already bailed, but so when I was a kid, I saw old Lefty Kray's presentation on 101 things to learn about fly fishing. And in that discussion, he mentioned that circle hooks are the way to go for hooking and holding on to fish because they wrap around the fish's jaw and penetrate easily. So since I was a teenager and heard that from Lefty Kray, I listened to pretty much everything that man said and did it to the best of my ability. I started looking for bigger curves in hooks, and it hasn't really been, maybe in the last, I don't know, I guess in the last decade in the US, earlier in Europe, big curves on hook bends have finally become commonplace. But this is so far the only continuous curve on a jig hook. Doesn't have to be this hook. It can be any hook really. I'm using, but the big gap is a big deal, and then that curve, so the point curves up. And I'm using the Tactical Fly Fisher inverting tungsten bead. Oh, but in metallic light pink. For some reason, I like the light pink over the, I'm sorry, it's all backwards, but there's the logo. Tactical Fly Fisher, it has a new model coming out, but these inverted beads, two things that I like. The bead is way more outside of the hook bend, even a slotted. Hey, Tucker, how's it going, man? Thanks for tuning in. So I'm doing, again, hey, Tucker, I'm tying just kind of a Paragon, sparkly Paragon thing I've been doing really well with, like really well. But these offset inverting beads have more of the bead outside of the hook bend. The more that hook bend is open, the easier your hook is going to get into the fish's jaw. And the more that it bends, the more it wraps around and the better it holds. So I don't lose very many fish when I'm using this hook. There are other ones that have really big bends that I like a lot. This is kind of one. I like this, the Phasma 415. It has the hook point that sucks back up around just a little bit. I hold on to fish really well with these styles of hooks. Any curved caddis one works well. An inverted bead on like a shrimp caddis pattern, these Orient Suns. These work pretty well. Anything with that curve in it is gonna help hold on to the fish. And plus, insects mostly, except for some case caddis, are always curved. So I like to tie on curve shanks. Okay, so I've got, that's the hook, the bead, the thread. Again, I think it's 8/0 I bought it forever ago. I've got just extra small black wire. I don't think the wire really matters much. It's just a contrasting color. Some nymphs I was using yesterday had copper wire. Hey, Lucas, how are you doing? Princess, thanks. Hey, dogs are cool. Oh, yeah, dogs are cool. I love dogs. My dog is up there being an idiot. Actually, he's just sitting on the couch staring out the window. Poor buddy. All right, so my body mitt, so I got the black extra small wire. You could do anything. I just like something that contrasts, and I like the durability of wire as opposed to thread, or some people just use like, it doesn't really matter. I'm going to coat this all in fingernail polish. I also have, so this is my sparkling material. This is what I've been using. It's a rainbow, really thin. So I have 4 layers of it to take up some space. I'll show you how I do that in a minute, but I get some of my materials from like quilting supply manufacturers. This is one of them. It's a Superior Threads product, number 112. It is really, really, really small. That is like a millimeter wide, maybe 1.5 millimeters. And it's just a rainbow color of sparkle. I guess you can see it better on the spool. So I just pull off the length of this, double it over twice, depending on the size of the hook. If it's a size 18 or 20, I'll just do it once. But anyways, I have 4 strands. Boom. I have a thread base, and the thread base is important because this is what I do, because it works well. I hate when flies fall apart. I hate it. And I'm always throwing flies into things I shouldn't, like trees and rocks and like really rough brush. And it's fish's teeth, really big fish's teeth, really beat up flies. So on nymphs especially, but even on dry flies, I try to glue the hell out of them. A lot of my European buddies from England and Scotland like to use, they were using head cement forever ago. That hard as nails stuff. I just use a lot of fingernail polish. Now, when I wrap my sparkle materials, I'm going to wrap away. I'm going to try to flatten it. This first wrap doesn't go always as planned, but I try to get all 4 fibers like parallel to each other or next to each other. They'll overlap a little bit, but it's not a big deal. I'm trying to keep a little bit of a flat profile because I don't want to build up a whole lot of thickness, because most insects are very thin and small. Also, the fatter they are, the more water they have to push to sink. So thinner flies will sink more easily, weight being the same, right? I'm going to do a couple extra wraps behind that bead to try to taper it just a hair behind the bead. And I'm using this hot orange thread just as a hot spot. Cutting it close as possible. And then keep my my sparkle material from like getting too uneven for the next fly. I just use a little hair clip. Well, it's not a hair clip. What do you call these things? Well, wow. Hackle plier. Wow, thank you. or a roach clip, I guess, is another use for them. And I'll use that to keep my materials even. Okay, next one, we got the extra small black thread. I'm gonna wrap that toward me. So the opposite way to capture my softer body material. And I'm gonna go kind of close together at the beginning and then space that out a little ways. And I'm tying a bunch of these because I've been doing so well on them at our local, well, one of our local lakes. I'm taking a bunch of the Johnson County Youth Mentor kids out fishing tomorrow morning, and I need a bunch of these. Oh, I just lost my wire. Because I feel like if I don't have these, we won't catch fish. All right, so I'm constantly spinning my threads so it doesn't get too bound up, which makes it break easier. And now I'm just going to work up my hot spot and just build up a thread base a little bit fatter behind the thread head and just kind of get it set. You got to be careful because the spiraled wire kind of wants to grab your wire and keep pulling it back. It's not great to have just one strand of wire separated, so I try to make it nice and bulky. Gonna go to just a whip finish, and the way I whip finish, I like to go fewer wraps but more half hitches. So I don't know, 2 to 4 wraps. I usually end up around 3 sometimes, and I'm slightly putting more wraps towards the bead just to taper it a bit. And I'm doing this many wraps partly for durability, but mostly just to build up a taper. And I figure if I'm gonna build up a taper, might as well have half hitches there to stop it if it does get cut. Suck it up tight, trim it tight. And then I'm just going to cover it again in the fingernail polish. And pretty thick, because it shrinks a little bit once it's actually dry. And I'm also going to coat the bead. I don't know if they're anodizing it or what process they're using on the beads, but it's not very thick and it's not very durable. And I found after even just fish teeth, but definitely after touching a few rocks with it, the pigment comes off of those beads pretty easy. So I've been coating my beads with fingernail polish. Rotate it a bit to get it dry, and then a little wing case. I just use some black fingernail polish. And while I'm waiting to get it open, I just kind of turn it upside down so that most of the finish goes towards the back of the fly. Durability. And I wipe off most of the black off the brush. There's enough there, but not a ton. And try to keep my hands steady, which they're getting more unsteady as I get older. And just put a little bit of a wing case on top of the nail polish. It stays kind of put just fine. Putting it on while it's still wet helps chemically combine the two materials so that they're not one layer, one thing, and a separate layer that can peel off. Boom. So that's it. I don't really have a name on this. I'm sure there's some other pattern that looks exactly like this. I don't name flies very often. I do have a couple of patterns I name, but I just call this I don't call it anything. It's a sparkly paragon, a rainbow paragon, I guess. But then I put the orange thing on there, like the Baetis patterns, whatever. It works, man, and women and children. It works really well. That's going to take, I don't know, 10 or 15 minutes to dry completely. So I just kind of hang it over here on my rack and try to keep them from sticking to each other. I can see comments on there. Do you guys want to see anything else? Let me show you. Again, the focus on this isn't great. I apologize. I haven't used this before, but this is what I've been tying. I think you can see them. Little tiny ones. These are actually a little bit more green than rainbow, but they're still sparkly. These just simple kind of leeches, and then a different size of the rainbow paragons. So a lot of little, kind of like a lot of little midgy stuff, a lot of little Baetis stuff. We're just starting to get into, I don't know, other mayflies and caddis. I saw some Mother's Day caddis coming off the other day, and it wasn't Mother's Day, so that was kind of cool to see. I'm going to tie another one. I'm going to just, if you guys want to comment, say something. I'm honestly just doing this because I've been tying by myself for days, and it gets a little bit boring talking to myself after a little while. a long while. And Hefe's not here, so I don't have my dog to talk at. Orange thread just on the front half. That's mostly to kind of start that taper towards the bead. Oh, we have black wire, which I dropped on the floor, and I'm not going to look for it. I got trays of just stuff back here. Extra small black copper wire, black coated copper wire. I'll tie that on first, put it just behind the bead, kind of on my side of the hook shank. It wants to wrap a little bit to the far side, but that's fine, whatever. Okay, and then I'm gonna stay on this front half, pull that wire over the back, grab my rainbow sparkle material, line up the ends, use crawdad claws. I use this when I'm teaching fly tying a lot. I tell people to use crawdad claws when you're using your materials. I had some people say, oh, crab claws. I was like, no, I don't know much about crabs. I am from the Rocky Mountains, and I know about crawdads, and they have claws like this. So I use crawdad claws. Tie in those tips. Boom, work up a good thread base. And I go back just about to the point of the hook. I didn't really talk about this, but another aspect of having those big bends in your flies hooks, they're there to hook and hold on to a fish's lip, right? If you start putting materials past the bend of the hook, those materials two things. They either have to go into the fish's lip, which creates a bigger hole in the fish's lip, which will heal up, but it makes it loose. So your fly can slip out way more easy because it's a bigger hole for the fly to pop out of. So like those wire worms that people put the wire all the way back and there's just a little tiny point at the end. Not good fly design for holding on to fish. And that's how I figured it out was when I was guiding in Montana for over a decade. I used a lot of those copper wire worms, but I noticed I would bring them in and the wire would be through the fish's mouth. And there's just a big hole, and I've actually had a couple of those let go because I would pinch the barbs because they would work their way back through that big hole. So try to keep as much of that hook bend there as possible. It'll make your flies look a little smaller, but that's not going to hurt anything. And a lot of times it'll bring out more fish. I said that wrong. A lot of times fish will be more likely to feed on them. All right, fingernail polish on the thread base. And I do try to make the thread base relatively consistent all the way across there. That adds a lot of durability to the body. Boom. And then as I wrap the flash material, trying to keep them parallel and not too overlapped to build a nice flat body. Materials up the top. Oh boy, cut my wire. 1, 2, 3. And not always, but a lot of times I'll put a 4th wrap there in front to kind of pinch the materials on that hook shank so that they don't work loose. I mean, I'm covering the whole thing in glue. It's probably not a bad idea, or it doesn't really matter, but you can't have too durable of a fly, right? Wrap the wire toward me or towards yourself, counterwind, just to get kind of an opposing wrap to protect the flash material. Boom, boom, boom. Oh, and this is a 2.5 millimeter inverting bead, again from Tactical Fly Fisher. Any curve E hook will work, especially with the inverting bead, because the inverting bead will flip it over. And just a little Texas tornado to snap your wire off. You don't need scissors. I think using scissors on wire is dumb because it ruins your scissors. And counter twist my thread just so the durability holds up a little better. And it lays down a little flatter as well. Build up a thread hotspot. Any questions, comments, or concerns? I'm looking. Yeah, no, not so far. Right, I got a decent thread head there, and I'm gonna just whip finish 3 or 4 times with 3 or 4 wraps per finish. There's my dog. Coughing on something. Oh, I think my dog's puking. Oh, that's awesome. Well, good. I'll have something to do after I get done tying flies. Thanks, Hefe. What are you doing? What did you get into you weren't supposed to? Huh? What did you get into that you weren't supposed to? Yeah, I don't really want to know. So there, built up thread head. Thread real close. And the second to last finishing touch. Another thing, I did this once and I kind of kicked myself in the butt. I didn't really put a whole lot of finish on the right where that wire comes over on top of the body. I found out that's a weak point. I've had that break a couple of times because I wasn't really coating them very much and I didn't go over the back of the fly. So now when I'm coating the bodies of these, I make sure that I go kind of over the back. So I pull the polish from the fly onto the hook shank behind it. So that I can make sure I cover the very back where that wire curves over the top. It's kind of a pinch point for that wire, and it will break if you touch a rock just right or catch a million fish on the fly, which you're no doubt going to do. So just a little bit of rotation, let that kind of settle out even, and you get a little bit tackier because now black fingernail polish. Boom. This is support for my hands so I don't get too shaky. It turns out rowing boats in Montana for decades causes your hands to get a little bit more carpal tunnel than normal and a little shakier. So I made that back a little bit thick, but whatever. Fish don't care. Thank you, Rick. Thank you, Rick. Man, this, I don't know. It's a simple fly. It's a very durable fly if you put enough finish on it. I guess one thing, I am not using UV cure. I have UV cure somewhere in here. But it turned out I was just like rotating it and curing it with a light about the exact same time I was waiting for fingernail polish to cure. So I didn't really see a speed benefit. And then depending on the brand, it would a lot of times just never cure. I mean, until you sat it out in the sun for a week. So I got sick of having like tacky bodies. And with fingernail polish, I know it's going to dry hard. I just have to wait long enough. If it was warmer down here, it would cure really quick, but I just hang them on my little rack here and they cure in just a few minutes. So I can tie a few even before I go fishing, and they get untacky really quick, especially compared to UV cure. Also, it was brought to my attention, a lot of people, I don't know the numbers at all, but I've heard several instances of people getting skin cancer on your hands from UV cure. I didn't think about it until I was told, but you're putting UV light on your hand in a concentrated amount, right? So if you're constantly like whatever using your UV light, it's bouncing, hitting your hand, it's going to cause skin cancer on top of all the other sunlight from fishing the flies, right? So be mindful, wear gloves and or I guess sunscreen, but it'd be weird to have sunscreen on your hands. Just be careful with the UV light. When you're using UV stuff, it does work obviously, and it's good stuff, but also with fingernail polishes, I can get really cool, like sparkly stuff. This is my favorite, Extreme Wear. because it has like straight little materials. There's like little tiny microscopic straight pieces of sparkle that tend to hold really well on the flies, and they just add just like, I don't know, a cool subtle sparkle. I could talk forever about fingernail polish. Here's the round sparkle. So these clear, like silvery kind of rainbow sparkle finishes. Oh, I love them, and the fish love them. I am sure I catch 80% more fish because I'm using sparkly nail polish on my flies. It's science. There's also kind of cool stuff like, I mean, you know, like the holographic LA Hypno. Like that's really cool. Sparkle in green. Oh, it's like a bluish green. Like, tell me whatever caddis is in the river isn't gonna like look like this to a fish once I paint that on there. So just a lot of other options that the fly fishing industry take forever to figure out. All of the UV cure stuff is all fingernail industry stuff. I found out it's all fingernail stuff. There's whole hand things for UV cure stuff to cure the UV drying polishes, but for a couple of bucks I can get, I mean, I've had this nail polish for like a year and a half, and look at that, it still works well. Sometimes you might need a little bit of this nail polish remover. It thins it out. That's just acetone, so you could actually just get a huge thing of acetone. I just bought this because I was there looking for fingernail polish in the fingernail aisle, because this polish I've had, I think, for about 2 years, and it's kind of thick, but I just dosed it with acetone the other day, and it's just thin enough to level out easy, but it's like just thick enough to where it dries a little bit quicker. So there you go. There's some, I didn't realize I was getting my fingernail polish thing, but I'm a big fingernail polish fan. That is all. I'm going to tie more, but I think I've kind of covered everything. Thanks for paying attention, and have a good day. Be nice to the fish, be nice to the environment, and take a dog fishing. Take care, guys. Thanks for watching. Oh, I don't know how to stop this. Anybody know how to stop a live thing? Do I just X out of here? Sure. All right, see ya. There's no stop button.